Know your Lord. We learn about his names and his attributes. Know your Lord. What he approves and disapproves. Know your Lord. Believe in all things that he has brought forth. Know his oneness, Lord.
Know Your Lord, part of the Right Belief series by Sheikh Kareem Abu Zaid, right here on Sunnahfollowers. Being taught by Ustada Layla Nashiba as she lays down the foundations to get you together. Learn about your Lord. Know your Lord. Streaming on all major platforms. Channel Sunnahfollowers. Assalamu alaikum. Get to know your Lord. First part of the Right Belief series by Sheikh Kareem Abu Zaid. This dynamic literary work of art's main goal is to revive an understanding the names and attributes of Allah. And understanding the name and attributes of Allah will elevate our faith, strengthen us, and keep us steadfast. This wonderful book is now available in an audiobook format and can be found free of charge on YouTube, channel Kareem Abu Zaid. Get to know your Lord. You have nothing to lose.
Chapter or the last segment of Know Your Lord. Know Your Lord. And we've been spending the past few weeks discussing the names of Allah and why it's important for us to know the names of Allah. And we spoke about how to call upon Allah using his names. And a lot of people ask the question, out of all the names that Allah has, what is his greatest name? And that's what Sheikh Kareem Abu Zaid ends this wonderful book with that question and the answers that people have given. So with that said, let's put the PowerPoint up on the screen and we can talk about it, inshallah. Let's see. And we'll be covering the last pages of this book. And for those of you most of you have the book, I want you to pay attention to how the book ends with the names of Allah. He gives the 99 different names of Allah and their meanings translated into English. So that way you can see the different names of Allah and you can call upon him using those names. Well, we're going to cover pages 212 to 216, and then 216 on to the end of the book are the 99 names. So we're going to answer that question about which of his names are the greatest name of all. First of all the names of Allah are great. All of his names are great without any exception. And all of his names are free of any imperfections. They are free of any flaws, and they're all excellent names. And like I've told you guys, when you make dua or when you begin to speak to Allah, call upon him using any name, any of those names that he has revealed to us, any of those 99 names. Okay, don't make names up. Don't add to them. Don't take away. But in regards to the question at hand here, we do have several hadiths where people ask which of the names are the greatest names of Allah. And I'm going to go over some of those hadiths now. For example, we have this one by Abu Umaymah. He said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the greatest name of Allah, if he is called by which he will respond, can be found in the 3 surahs, Al-Baqarah, Al-Imran, and Taha. These are all three of these surahs, he said, contain his greatest name. And then we have another hadith narrated by Anas. He said, I was sitting with the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, while a man was praying. The man made supplication. He said, oh Allah, I ask you because all praise is due to you. There is no God but you alone. You have no partner or associate. You are the bestower, the originator of the heavens and the earth. You are the possessor of majesty and honor. O ever living, O sustainer. And when the prophet heard this, the prophet said, that man has asked Allah by his greatest name, which if he is called upon it, he will answer. And if asked by it, he will give. But look at all the names he used. I want you guys to pay attention to all the names this man used. You know, all the names that he called Allah by. The possessor of majesty and honor. The ever living, the sustainer, the originator of the heavens, the bestower, the one, the alone. Okay. Then we have a third hadith from Burayda ibn al-Husayb. He said the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam heard a man making supplication. And the man was saying, oh Allah, indeed I ask you by my testifying that you are Allah. There is none worthy of worship except you, the one, As-Samad, the one who does not beget, nor was begotten, and there is none who is like him. And that's when the prophet said, in this instance, by the one in whose hand is my soul, he has asked Allah by his greatest name, the one which if he is called upon it again, he will respond, and if asked by it, he will give. So these answers, these three hadiths here, give the answers that most people will say are Allah's greatest name. And let's look at these three. We have this hadith from Asma, the daughter of Yazid. She said the prophet said that the greatest name of Allah is in these two verses here. And your deity is one deity. There is none who has the right to be worshipped but he, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Okay? Alif Lam Mim. Allah has the right to be worshipped. No one, Allah has the right to be worshipped. He is the ever living, the sustainer. So that's why you guys will come upon some people who will tell you that Allah's greatest name is Ar-Rahman or Ar-Rahim. You will also hear some people say that his greatest name is the ever living, the sustainer. You will hear some people say that his name is the one. Okay? So there's different opinions regarding which name of Allah is the greatest. Different opinions from the scholars. The first view is that it is, and I want you guys to understand something that we need to realize as Muslims. Number one, it's incorrect to differentiate between Allah's names. Some of the scholars will say that it's incorrect to differ between them and to favor some names over others. These scholars believe that all of Allah's names must be viewed equally. They must be approached equally and used equally as well. Imam Malik believed that it was impermissible, in other words, not permissible, to regard some of Allah's names as being better than others. And Imam Malik was famous for making no distinction between parts of the Quran and held all of them in the highest esteem. And also he did the same with Allah's names. It was also said that he believed making a distinction between Allah's names will lead to believing that the less favored parts are inferior to those that are more favored. So a lot of people support this view. A lot of the scholars support this view. You know, don't sit around trying to favor some names over others. All of Allah's names are great. And if you start choosing some names over others, it'll cause you to disrespect Allah's names. Okay? We have hadiths. Some of the hadiths interpret the greatest name to mean among the great. In other words, that the hadiths are saying among the great names, that they're not singling out. A lot of the scholars of hadith will say that the hadiths that we read, that I mentioned earlier, those 3 hadiths I mentioned earlier, are not saying that some names are greater than others, but instead it's saying that they're all great. And amongst them, he called upon some names that are amongst them that are great. Okay? So again, this is the first view that many of the scholars have. You know, it's incorrect to differentiate between Allah's names and favor some over others. Then we have this one, which you guys have heard here. There's a second view. The second view of the second view are scholars who believe that Allah has kept knowledge of his greatest name to himself alone. You guys have heard many brothers say that, you know, that only Allah knows what his greatest name is. Also, some of the early scholars shared this opinion, such as Ibn Hajar. Ibn Hajar said that this opinion was held by others and respected. So that's another opinion, that only Allah knows what his greatest name is. And then we have a third view. And the third view is held by those scholars. They view that the greatest name of Allah exists and that it is a specific name, but they differ as to which name it is. Okay, that's another view. Yeah, he's got a great name, but they have different views of which it is. And then the fourth view. The fourth view has 2 categories of scholars that are in support of these views. The fourth view, one category of scholars, they approve the reality of Allah's existing names by evidence, and they do explore trying to distinguish between them. And the first opinion that these scholars have is, and you guys have heard it, this is what Sister Samat has talked about, and also Dr. Asim. They say the first opinion is that the greatest name of Allah is Allah, that Allah is the greatest of his names, because it encompasses all the other names, and it also indicates the subtle and sublime attributes of his. Plus, no one can ever refer to themselves as being Allah. This name can never be shared by a human or any other of Allah's creation. Okay? And you guys have heard that. And then the second of the fourth view is that Allah's greatest name is that first hadith that I went over with you, the ever living and the sustainer. And this is the view that Imam Nawawi had. It's also the view that Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, may Allah be pleased with him, had too. That Allah's greatest name is the ever living and the sustainer. So, you know, Allah knows best. The bottom line is Allah knows best. I would not get into debates with other Muslims concerning which of Allah's names is the greatest. You know, all his names are great. Every single one. And Allah tells us himself in the Quran, he says, call upon me using my names, and to me belong the most beautiful names.